Among the many instruments that you will be using the rest of your life that you are in dentistry is the articulator. Now, we're going to show you the details of the Denar D5 articulator, which the school will lend you this year. You will buy then at the beginning of your sophomore year or the end of this freshman year. And there are two important considerations. First of all, when you check out the articulator from the school, you will be asked to sign a contract. This contract states that you are responsible for the damages that occur to the instrument. And of course, the other consideration is that this is an introduction to the beginning you're using the. It goes without that you should know some of the parts of the instrument so that when you start mounting your dental form for the unit, when you start using it for a patient, you'll know the instrument that you're working with. And I might point out at this time that this instrument is only a part of a total system. As this is the introduction and no more than that. Now let's look at one articulator. And come in a case. The articulator sits in a case and has a few items that we will mention to go with it. Then we'll discuss these briefly. Now the first thing we want to call to your attention is this envelope that has two little long round items in it. And some of the envelopes will have a little angular Allen set screw wrench. Now we've taken this set screw wrench out of some of the envelopes, we've left it in some of them. You really have no need for that. But these two little round pieces of metal are called mounting studs. They fit into the condyles of the articulator so that a face bow, another part of the system, may be attached to the articulator to transfer a relationship from the patient to the instrument. Now, I'm trying to point out to you about these. These are very frequently lost. They are $7.50 a pair. So my suggestion is that you keep track of these and do not lose them. Okay, now let's look at the wrenches. There are two. Now there are several articulators that you will check out which have been updated. They had to go back to factory for different purposes. And they've come back from the factory updated with some screws and things changed. And in your case, the instrument will only have one wrench, and that is the big wrench. The little wrench will be missing. They have changed the screw sizes and all, and we approve of this very much because it helps a bad situation. We'll explain that later. Okay, now this wrench, the big one, will do most of the adjusting. The little one is primarily used for chaining the dovetail slides, and we'll come to that in just a minute. So now let's look at the articulator proper. First of all, let's take and look at the mandibular bow, or the lower part of the articulator. This is the incisal guide table, this little front block, and it lifts up and the wings come up, and we're not going to bother with that. By the way, there's a little screw right underneath here, loosen, and you can slide it right off. Now, I know with that screw underneath there, there's another screw knob right here that holds this mounting ring on. Loosen this, and this mounting ring comes off. Put it back on and tighten the screw. Now, this mounting ring is what is used to fasten your lower or mandibular cast to the articulator. Now, this part, let me turn, is the eccentric latch, and it fits into a part of the upper bow, and these two items are the condyles. Now, if I can turn it to you, you'll notice you can see a scale here and here. Now, that scale represents a distance from the center. Not a distance between condyles, but a distance from the center of the articulator. And these items move in and out. I will show you that. Using the big wrench, you place in the Allen head screw. Now, this will move back and forth. And we can set our distance between the condyles by this amount of adjustability. Now, to sum up the lower bow, you've got the incisal table, the knob and mounting plate or mounting ring, the eccentric latch, and the two condyles. Now, this is very simple for this. Now, the upper bow is not quite this simple. This is where the complexity of the instrument seems to lie. First of all, now this is the incisal guide pin assembly. Down here, there's a little foot. And let me see, this is the Allen set screw wrench to adjust this foot. And on the opposite side of that is a little scale. Turn it around where you can see it. And this first mark should line up with the 0, and it should be left there until the occasion arises where you need to adjust that. For the immediate future, you will not need to adjust that. This pin should read 0 with this little index mark right up here. If you'll look at your instrument when you get it, you'll see a little index mark, a little arrow, and then it should read 0 on the scale. Okay. With the incisal guide pin assembly held in place by this little screw right here, you want to keep that snug and try to snug it down. Don't force it, but snug it. And you remember, you don't know this. This is a two-handed instrument. You always want to keep a good grip on it. Now, if this slips when you have this tightened, come to us and we'll give you new washers to put on that, because it's important that that not slip, and it's important that you not have to bear down too much tightening, because this is aluminum and it's soft and it will be easy to strip. Now, as on the lower bow, you have a knob that handles a mounting plate again, mounting ring, and then we have two fossa assemblies and a eccentric latch assembly. Now, this completes a eccentric latch here. And these fossa assemblies are capable of a number of movements. And this is where all adjustments other than the intercondylar distance are made. Now, let me review this for you. Your incisal guide pin assembly, your knob and mounting ring, your eccentric latch, the other part of your eccentric latch, and then the two right and left fossa assemblies. And there's one thing I will show you at this time, that from this view you can see that this fossa assembly is on this slide, and that this fossa assembly is on this slide right down here. Now, these two elements work in and out, and this center element does not. We'll come and discuss that in a little more detail in just a little bit. Now, we're going to show you how to adjust the articulator. Now, first things we're going to try to introduce you to on the fossa elements are the walls of the fossas. Now, each fossa has three walls. There is a medial wall here and here. Let me come in over here. Medial wall there, medial wall there. Remember from the tape on jaw relations and articulators that the human skull does not have a pronounced medial wall. The articulator does. there is a posterior wall. That is this wall right back here and right back here. Then there is a superior wall, top wall if you will, here and here. Now, let's talk about some of the adjustments. The first thing, when you're looking at it, you'll hold the instrument to you, just like it is right now. This first little screw here and here are what are adjusted for a thing called immediate side shift. Those you will leave on 0. You will not alter those for right now. Now, the next screw is for the medial wall, the progressive side shift. By the way, these are new terms. Be sure and make note of them. This screw and this screw are your adjustment for your progressive side shift. That is, permits lateral movement of the instrument to go along with the movements of the mandible. See, now I can move this quite a bit. Now I'm going to put it back to where I had it. The other side is already set, so we're not going to change it. You want to set 10 degrees into the immediate side, into the progressive side shift. Now, this little screw here and here with the black plastic around them, adjust, loosen them, and you move this tab to adjust the posterior wall. You can see your little index tab right here. Leave that on 0. Do not alter it. Now I'm going to turn the instrument around to show you another adjustment, which is, we just talked about the posterior wall on top. Now, from the back side, loosening this particular screw, I'll get out of your way in 1 second, permits us to rotate the superior wall. It's called the top wall adjustment, or condylar inclination, or condylar rotation. Take your pick. That's, when it's rotated in like that, it's positive. When it's rotated out like that, it's a negative reading. You will leave that set at 0. You don't want to change that at this time. Now, let's review real quick so that I'll hold it so you can see it better. Okay. Immediate side shift, leave on 0. Progressive side shift, put on 10 degrees. Posterior wall, leave at 0. Condylar inclination or rotation, wall this way, leave on 0. Now, there's one more superior wall adjustment. We had the condylar rotation superior wall adjustment. There's another superior wall adjustment called progressive, in which case the instrument will slide forward. But remember, all movements are mandibular movements. They're not maxillary movements. So any move you make with this really is the movement of the lower and the opposite. So what we will do now is, so you can see, loosen this screw right here. Now, with that, you can rotate the protrusive angle of the fossa. You want to set this at about 35 degrees. Let's come up with a setting of, let's set it on 25, which is a good beginning for right now. Okay, now this one's already set on 25, this one's on 25. So our protrusive, which will rest on these fossas, will rest on the condyles of the lower bow. We have set our angle now in which the instrument will move forward and backwards. It really will move forward. Now, opening the centric latch, we can set this down on our condyles. But we have another setting to make now, a critical setting that's very critical to you. We need to set our condylar distance. And at this instance then, let's go through setting that condylar distance. We pick up our little wrench and we will loosen this screw and this screw on this fossa element, just a touch, and just with your fingers slide out, say, to 60 degrees. And just gently snug. Come to the other slide. These are called dovetail slides. There are the fossil slides, and set this one on 60 degrees. This is just for practice right now. We will give you the correct figures later when you get your Denar. Snug it. Then don't crank down on these because this is a soft metal and they will strip out. Now, to prepare for that, let's open up the condyles. We already had them loose to a little bit wider than this 60 degrees that we've got on the scale here. Let's see if I can show you this. Looking at the index marks are on the dovetail itself. Index mark here, showing 60 degrees on each slide. Now, we'll pick this up, put it on our condyles, close the centric latch, which will center. I want you to be able to see this. This centric latch, when it closes down, it closes in this groove and it centers this upper bow back and forth this way. Now, very gently and carefully, slip in both condyles until they touch the medial wall lightly and gently. Not hard. Lightly and gently. Look down at your centric latch. Get on top of it. Turn the instrument to you and look down and see that your centric latch is touching both sides of this groove. This point is in the center of this groove. If it is, work it up and down a time or two. Come back and check it. If it's still centered, now very gently ease in and snug up the two screws that tighten up your condyle setting. Now, your instrument is set at a condylar distance of 60 millimeters. And it's measured again, I will repeat, from the center. This is called the intercondylar distance, or the term also used is vertical axis. So now we have shown you how to set your vertical axis. I think you should practice this. Set yourself a few arbitrary movements, measurements, and set them on your slides. Go through everything of the fossa elements, see how they move. There are certain cautions that we would like to tell you about, certain things to do and certain things not to do to take care of this instrument. Like I said, we would love for you to turn the instrument back to us just in the same shape that you're getting it. So let's take a quick look, but try to pay close attention because this will be important. There are two critical experiences shown that there are two critical screws that should be kept snugged and firm. One is the incisal guide pin assembly. Now, if you pull this incisal guide pin assembly and it slips and you have tightened this screw, come to us, we'll give you a new washer. New washer, because many times you'll pick this upper part up, this upper bow up, and this pin may slip on you, then the upper bow will drop. The same thing true for the moment of the lower bow, the incisal table assembly. This screw right here, you want to keep it snug with your fingers. Don't use anything else but your fingers, and don't crank down too hard, but snug it. And you don't want this to slide back and forth. You want it to stay put. That's one thing. Another thing, in using these wrenches, for instance here, or on the adjustments of the upper, snug gently with the wrenches. Don't crank down. This is aluminum, and aluminum's soft and the screws are steel. So snug gently, deftly, and get a nice touch. Strong enough to snug it, to hold it, but not so strong that you strip screws. Another thing, remember always that this is a two-handed instrument. You normally would hold this instrument and work with it in a manner like this. You may do your lateral motions and work with it like this. When you're carrying the instrument, you want to make sure that you have firm grip on it. I won't always say that you have to hold it with two hands, but it will be to your advantage to always bear in mind that if you let this instrument get away from you, some of the parts are very, very expensive. Now then, place the instrument. In your laboratory, never set an instrument out close to the edge of a desk like this. Somebody will walk along and it'll fall off and hit it and knock it off on the floor. Invariably, when that happens, they've got to go back to the factory, and the student is faced with about $100 repair job. And this is needless. Keep your instrument set in, away from the table edge. Keep it set in, out of harm's way. Now, on the centric latch assembly here, there is a spring up under here that sometimes breaks. Come to us and we will replace the spring for you. We may be out temporarily, and we may be able to replace it within minutes when you bring it in. But we want to do the spring replacing on this particular part. We don't want you to do it. Now I want to show you something about the back end of this upper bow that I think is very important. And I'm going to turn this over this way for just a minute to try to orient you on something. Let me get it squared away. Okay, now I'm going to raise it like this, and I'm going to show you a slide. This slide is an artist's concept of the back side of the maxillary bow of your articulator. Now, there are some important features here that I want you to be aware of. Well, first of all, on this slide, there is no little finger coming down like on your articulator that is part of the centric latch. We left that out so we could show you these 4 screws right in here and these 2 here. Now, these 2 screws you loosen and tighten to slide and lock this fossa assembly. These 2 screws, same thing. Loosen and tighten to move and lock this fossa assembly. Now these 2 screws, in between the pair here and the pair here, should never be touched. Your instrument has been carefully zeroed, and should you loosen these 2 screws, you will throw the calibration completely off. So this is one of the cautions that we want to present to you and get you to exercise good common sense. You cannot loosen these screws and then have your instrument right from that time on. It has to go on a special instrument. Now, underneath this screw and this screw and this screw and this screw are 4, under each screw, I should say, is a little tiny brass bushing. And I'm going to show you a greatly magnified view of that bushing. Now, this is very much enlarged, and I'm going to show you in just a minute. I will show you the actual bushing. But this little notch, this flat, and this little corner fits down over a knife edge on that dovetail that those slides slide on. Now we're showing you 2 dovetails. Let's take just one for just a minute. If you'll look, and let me get the angle just right. See those notches in that top edge? I said that's sort of a knife edge thing. That little piece on that big slide, that one little peculiar shaped item, rides on this sharp edge, and when it's lost, the screws cut in and make these little sawtooth marks on this dovetail. Now, this dovetail was purchased by one of the students ahead of you. He paid $17.50 for it. Here's another dovetail that a student purchased because he lost that little tiny brass bushing and got the same thing. The screws cut it up. Okay, now, what little brass bushing? I said it's under those screws. I want to show you one. Now, this is that little tiny brass bushing. It's very little, But there are 2 in each dovetail slide. And they're easy to lose. So we'd like to give you a clue. In the screws that you loosen and tighten to slide the dovetails, if the screw comes down lower than usual, quit. When you're screwing it in, all of a sudden it seems like it's screwing in a little too far. Before you ever touch it, stop, back it out and see if you see brass in that hole. That would be this little clip. And if it's not there, come see us. Now, we can't sell you these directly. What we do, we'll give you one and we'll charge a breakage fee for it. They are 70 cents each, but that's a lot cheaper than $17.50 for this thing. Now, what you're seeing is an articulator with the incisal table off and the incisal guide pin assembly off, and a special instrument called an optical field gauge. Now, this instrument is made, both instruments are made by the same company. Now, this field gauge is what we have to keep your articulator in tolerance. Now, your instrument is guaranteed to a tolerance of plus or minus 5/1000ths of an inch, which is about as fine as an articulator comes. Now, if I will rotate this for you just a little bit, like this dial indicator right here tells me that this condyle, right up under here, is the right height, up and down. There's one on the other side too, I'll show you in just a minute. Now, I can adjust this to the right height when I have this field gauge in, but there are 2 screws right over here on this little block, right there, see them? If you mess with those 2 screws, you're going to throw the vertical adjustment of the condyle off. So please do not. Now, down here in this part of the crossbar, and right up here in this part of the crossbar is a hole. There are 2 holes, and in each of those 2 holes is a, let me take this off. I'll show you one. There's a hole behind the condyle, and there's a hole underneath the condyle block. There's a hole up here. There's a hole right there, and one under this condyle block. Okay, now there's a screw in each one of those holes, and that adjusts this back bar to a relationship with the lower bow of the articulator. Thus, we have a way of adjusting the lateral position of the upper bow of the articulator to the lower bow, and we can adjust the vertical up and down, and we can adjust the rotation type thing of the upper bow to the lower bow, but we have to have this instrument to do it. Now, if you put your wrenches and any of those 4 screws on either side, you'll throw your instrument completely off, and if you throw it completely off, any work you have done on it, everything will have to be remounted, and the instrument will have to come to us for re-zeroing, and it may not come right back to where you had it. So it will be much to your benefit for your work if you'll leave the little screws on either side of the condyle block alone, and the 2 screws on each end of the crossbar alone, and resist temptation to change them. Now, on the upper bow, on the slide that I showed you, the dovetail, the screws that hold the dovetail, and I'll turn that around again so you can see them. And get this out of the way for just a minute. There we go. Not in the slides, but in the dovetail, here and here. Don't loosen those screws, because that will throw the horizontal adjustment of the upper bow to the lower bow completely off too. So, if you will observe those screws and leave them alone, it might save a tremendous amount of grief. Now, I might say this. You cannot correct a mismount, believe it or not. You cannot correct a mismount by adjusting any of these screws. They simply will not work that way. So my suggestion is leave those screws alone. Take care of your instrument. If something goes wrong, you have an element of doubt about, come see us and we'll go through it and see what we can do to save you some grief and expense so that we can take care of these instruments and use them over and over, please.